Welcome to Audit Archive, where we run you through some of the most questionable and rather atrocious police encounters. Today, we have several unbelievable encounters where cops miserably fail to intimidate people and eventually end up making a fool out of themselves. In this first clip, a driver who did nothing wrong and broke no laws is pulled over by an officer who claims that the vehicle's tag is expired. The interaction starts off as an ordinary one, as the officer asks the driver for his documents. However, the officer's true intentions soon become obvious when the officer asks a question that basically implies that the driver might have been using his phone while operating his vehicle.
And another question, you just turned that on, right? Like, you didn't have that while you were driving?
No, I just turned it on, yeah.
It's clear that this question has nothing to do with the nature of the traffic stop and simply proves that the officer has malicious intent. After the officer goes through the documents provided by the driver, he claims that the vehicle's tag had expired in December of last year.
Because it seems like a while if the validation tag expired in December.
In response to this, the driver makes it clear that the vehicle is in fact rented, and he technically has nothing to do with the vehicle's tags or registration, which of course makes sense.
Well, you call Enterprise. That's not my car. I don't know why you pulled me over.
But for some reason, the officer continues to state that it is the driver's responsibility, and he would be issuing a ticket for this anyway.
I explained to you the validation.
No, but this is a rental car.
The onus is on the driver, though. The onus is on the driver to have validated plate.
The driver continues to tell the officer to call the enterprise that's responsible, but the officer's ignorance appears to be through the roof.
That's
it is.
Enterprise.
You're the driver.
No, that's not a problem. You call Enterprise.
You're the driver.
It's almost as if the officer just wanted to create trouble. As this went on, the driver requests the officer to allow him to step out and take a look at the license plate himself to confirm if it was actually expired or not.
Can I go see? Can I go see you tell me the plate is expired? Can I go see?
And unsurprisingly, the license plate very visibly proves that the allegations made by the officer are completely false and fabricated. The tag is nowhere near being expired. The officer even pretends to be in shock and says that it's a mistake.
Oh, that's my mistake.
To make matters worse, the officer basically tells on himself and proves that he was racially profiling the driver. Listen closely as he admits to running the vehicle's license plate before even initiating the traffic stop, which means that he definitely already knew that the tag was not expired.
No, that's your mistake.
That is my mistake.
Did you see because it's a black person?
No, stop it, no.
Yeah, come on. That's not
I didn't even see
proper.
who was driving the car. Look at the plates, sir.
Shameless conduct from the officer's side. Moving on to the second clip, this family here was sitting around and enjoying their time at the park when two police officers suddenly show up out of nowhere and make contact with them.
Hi. What's up, guys?
Right off the bat, the man recording the officers exercises his rights and demands both officers first identify themselves.
How's it going? Who are you guys? Can you identify yourself, please?
In response, both officers comply and provide the man with their names and badge numbers.
Yeah. From Lakewood Police. What's your ID number, please? 2301. And you, sir? Oh.
Immediately after this, the man asks the officers why they came up to him and his family.
Okay, so what is the issue? You guys came up to us.
And the officers claim that the family was apparently yelling and screaming, which obviously isn't illegal a single bit, especially considering the fact that the family was in a park.
I guess it was just yelling and screaming.
Anyway, the family members informed the officers that they were simply conversating and having a good time, which should not be an issue to anybody else.
But we're just here enjoying ourselves right now.
Suddenly, the officers tweak their allegations a little and start claiming that the family members were cussing out loud, which, once again, isn't anything illegal at all.
So, my understanding, there's some cussing going on here.
And in response, the man recording this ordeal makes it clear that he does in fact cuss, and that he simply has the right to do that whenever he wishes to.
I cuss, yeah.
There's a bunch of kids here,
Yep.
obviously. I think that's...
They're playing over in the playground. Yeah, of course I cuss. I cuss anytime I want to cuss.
So, at this point, the family members realize that the officers are there for no good reason and begin to call them off. One member of the family says that he's simply going to pretend as if the officers are not even there anymore.
So if you don't like it, like they don't like to hear what you want to say, then I mean, you don't have to be here.
Then, it seems as if the officers are finally leaving the family alone. Well, guess what happens just as the officers are about to leave? another police officer shows up. And this simply means that the officers can stick around for longer, even though they were just about to leave. Of course, the family members caught on to this, and one of them promptly tells the officers to get out of their space and simply leave them alone.
Oh no, I'm talking to my people right now. There's another one coming up right now.
It appears as if the officers were just not satisfied with the absence of drama throughout the interaction and wanted to get a kick out of something. However, they soon realize that they're not going to get much out of the family, so they finally leave them in peace. In this encounter, a man driving on his way back home is stopped at a checkpoint where officers immediately begin to harass him just because he refuses to roll his window down completely, something that's not even legally required in the first place.
How's it going? Going good. About yourself? Roll your window down there, bud. I'm comfortable right there.
When one officer asks for the driver's license, the driver swiftly complies and provides it to him.
Let me see your driver's license. Open the door, dude.
Bud is then arrogantly told that he could take his license back, only if he rolls his window down to speak with the officers.
If you want to take it back, you can roll that window down. What'd you say, sir?
And guess what their reasoning is? Well, they claim that it's tough to hear the driver.
Because they can't hardly hear you, that's why. If you roll the window down, we're just out looking for drunk.
That's a comical claim because the officers don't really find it tough to hear the driver, as you'll see throughout this incident. While one of the officers is gone with the driver's license, the other officer on the scene orders the driver to pull over to the side but is promptly asked if he had a reasonable suspicion to essentially detain and investigate the driver.
Okay, pull over on that side just a minute. I'm going to take the vehicle. For what reason do you have to detain me to pull me over into secondary, sir?
And what happens next is unbelievable. The officer comes up with a lame reason off the top of his head and states that the vehicle has tires that are almost illegal.
They're looking what? Almost illegal. They're almost too slick. Almost illegal. All right.
Despite the clear abuse of power, the driver continues to comply with the officer and pulls over. By this point, both officers on the scene are frustrated and annoyed over the fact that the driver was legally exercising his rights, which made it tough for them to take revenge on the driver for not rolling the window down. This becomes clear when the officers approach the driver and request him to step out so they can show him what's wrong with his tires.
Yes, sir. He wants to show you a tire out here, man. It's slick.
Now, almost anyone can catch on to what the officers are trying to do here. They want the driver to step out so they can fish for a reason to search his car and somehow detain him to escalate the situation. Luckily, the driver is smart enough to strictly refuse the request and says that he feels safe inside his vehicle.
I'd prefer to not get out of my vehicle. I think you need one.
To this, the officer mocks the driver and walks off laughing, which once again shows that nobody on the scene is up to any good on this night. After all that, you'd think the officers let the driver off, right? Well, wrong. As a part of their failed plan to detain the driver, the officers then come up with a completely random and unlawful vehicle inspection routine to check if the vehicle is good to drive on the public roads.
How about hit the blinkers on? Turn your right blinker on. Turn your right blinker on. I have no need to turn my blinkers on right now. I have no need to turn my blinkers on right now. He's doing a vehicle inspection. He wants to check your vehicle. Turn your right blinker on. Thank you. Now turn your left blinker on.
It's to be noted that even at this point, the only reason the driver was asked to pull over is the fact that he didn't roll his window down. Keeping this in mind, anything the officers do is entirely unlawful anyway. Regardless, the officers complete their inspection and yet again miserably fail to find a reason to pull the driver out of his vehicle.
Yes, sir.
Since everything else has failed, one of the officers then finally returns the driver's license, but not after bringing up an old traffic violation under the driver's name to simply taunt him and mock him some more.
Remember him writing you for 84 and 65? Yes, sir. On 575? See why he's scared to get out now.
After all that harassment, the driver is finally free to go. Now, this clip is possibly the most disgraceful one out there. Two young men are standing on a public sidewalk, creating no trouble, simply auditing a police officer sitting inside his patrol vehicle, who's apparently blocking traffic. However, little did they know that the officer is actually no less a tyrant. Watch as he signals the men to invite them closer to the patrol vehicle, and when accused of blocking traffic, flips on them and arrogantly says that he's just doing his job.
You're blocking traffic, sir.
Bro. I'm doing my job.
I mean, I don't know about you, but there's no way officers are paid to block traffic, right? Well, anyway, what happens after this is unbelievable. The officer steps out of his patrol vehicle and aggressively confronts the men while demanding their IDs.
Can you call your sergeant?
Welcome your IDs.
And when one of the guys asks the officer to call his sergeant, the officer shamelessly says that he will do so after he's done dealing with them.
No, yeah, I'm gonna call my sergeant when I finish getting your ID.
Right after this, the officer gives out unlawful orders to both guys and then proceeds to place them in handcuffs.
So put your hands in there. Is this a lawful order? It is.
One thing to note is that throughout the entire ordeal, the officer actively ignores and neglects any questions that the men ask him regarding why he is detaining them and what his probable cause is.
What are you doing?
What are you doing, bro? Put your hands behind your back. Come here.
I don't have. What's the crime?
I will. Relax.
What's the crime? What are you doing?
What crime did I commit?
And I think we all know why he refused to reply. He had no idea himself as to why he was detaining these guys. The officer is just on a dangerous power trip after being told that he's blocking traffic. And this, of course, does not give the officer any legal right to literally kidnap these innocent men. The footage cuts off when one of the guys is being handcuffed, but later continues. Several minutes after being unlawfully detained, both men finally had their handcuffs removed and resumed their recording. In the footage, the men are seen confronting the officer and questioning him about the incident, asking why he detained them and what the reason was.
I have a question. Why did you throw us in the back seat?
But once again, just like he's been doing so, the officer completely neglects to give a reasonable answer and replies with something ridiculous, which just proves that he's an officer who thinks he's above the law and simply enjoys abusing his power.
Sí, pero you guys were handcuffs for my safety. No los iba a dejar.
He says the reason he did whatever he did was just because he wanted to.
Why did I put you in the back of my car? Because I wanted to. Thank you. Wanted to.
Yep, you heard that right. The officer implies that he unlawfully detained the guys just because he felt like it. And his facial expressions just show that he could care less. Also, to make matters worse, the men catch him mocking them over their detainment. Soon after this, another officer shows up on the scene and is heard telling the men that they were supposed to shut up and comply with the officer when he demanded their IDs.
And an officer asks you for ID, you can't be like, you don't got no reason.
Now, it goes without saying that this is horrible advice, and one could assume that the officer was just trying to cover things up and slip this horrendous incident under the rug.
That's why you guys gotta do what you're told until you, no, listen to me, I'm telling you, this is how it works. This is 100% how it works.
But, well, we now know what happened, and it's crystal clear that the officer involved loves abusing his authority. One could only wonder what this officer has done to innocent people out there. Be sure to check out our previous video, where we run through many other outrageous cases.